Hello everyone. Today's video is going to mark the start of a 4-part series called
Battle of the Barbs.
In this series, I'm going to have the 4 different elemental damage dealing barbarian builds that I made. That took so many takes to be able to say right. Being the Shaman Barb, the Winter Soldier, SHAZAM, and the Barbaric build. Each go through the Ubers to see how well they do, and in the end, compare the results. When it comes to the changes made from the build guides to what you'll see in this video, the only changes are that all the builds will be getting the same pre-buffing to keep the opportunity for each build equal going through the Ubers to be able to get a torch, as well as using duress body armor and Gore Rider boots, despite that some were already using said boots in their initial build guides. But this way, it's fair to compare each build from their initial build guides that I made, as they would all have a good base amount of crushing blow and open wounds on top of their elemental damage. I will not be going over the details of the builds in this video, so if you're interested in checking out the builds for yourself, make sure to check out the build guides for all the information that you'll want to know. Link down in the description below. Every build will additionally be kept exactly as it was set as far as the means of attack, so those who were whirlwind builds will stay as such, as do those whom use frenzy. Keep in mind that these builds are not utilized for doing uber runs aside from the crushing blow, open wounds, and deadly strike that they would have to make it easier to whittle down the uber's health aside from utilizing their elemental damage to the fullest. Since the first of the builds I made a video for was the Shaman Barbarian, whom focused on poison damage, I'll be having him go through the Ubers first to help set the tone for what is to be expected with these runs. He'll be using Whirlwind as his primary means of dealing damage. The highlight of this build was that he was doing 24k damage, however, that has been reduced to just under 20k, now switching over from Bramble to Duress. Here's a quick glimpse of all his gear, though again, I won't be going over the finer details, but at least wanted you guys to see how he's currently stacked up for his run for this video. And this is how the mercenary is geared up as well. And lastly, here are all of his additional stats to see how all the numbers stack up, especially for things such as crushing blow and open wounds. Will this poison damage, dealing damage over time, still be able to wreck the Ubers to be able to get a torch, or will this be too toxic of a challenge to be able to handle? Any quick little bits of information will be shown on screen as needed to not distract from the run, and I'll go over more details of the run once it is completed. Let's go ahead and get started.
can't. Impossible. 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 Impossible.
My brothers will not have died in vain.
this run was pretty good for being a meme build, and it proved that it could get the job done with enough patience. The biggest weakness with this run was the time that was spent with either pre-buffing myself and or the Merc, but also when resupplying. Of the 18 minutes and 32 seconds from the start of entering the first portal to the death of the final Uber and Tristram, had none of the pre-buffing and resupplying section been sped up, 11 minutes and 55 seconds was spent with either pre-buffing myself and or the mercenary, or resupplying. However, the total fight times of all the 6 Ubers combined was 6 minutes and 37 seconds. And I've had other builds go through the Ubers with more time spent on the fights alone. The disadvantage of poison dealing damage over time, combined with Whirlwind costing a bit of mana, gives this build a big leeway in regards to each of the times measured. This build's resource management was, for the build concept, I'd say a fair 6 out of 10, with some room for improvement. But not much could have been done better with the way that this build was set up for this run, without possibly putting its survivability into question, with several things needing to be managed at once, as I couldn't focus too heavily on just the mana potions, but I also didn't want to just waste a bunch of full rejuves when my health wasn't an issue. So this was a tougher aspect to judge. The mercenary did die twice. However, with him dying at Lilith and Mephisto, those were 2 deaths that I expected, especially since he was set up to be hit to be able to proc low resistance. Now with the Poison Barbs run completed, the next build I made a guide for was the Winter Soldier Cold Damage Barbarian. The bar has been set both low as far as the overall time to completion. However, with the drawbacks that the Poison build Barbarian had, this one's expectations are still pretty high for overall performance. He also will be using the skill Whirlwind for his main skill to deal damage. However, his damage will be done immediately in comparison to the prior build. He also will have a good opportunity for crowd control with his Holy Freeze auras from his dual Doom axes. Here's a quick glimpse of all his gear, though again, I won't be going over the finer details, but at least wanted you guys to see how he's currently stacked up for his run for this video. And this is how the mercenary is geared up as well. And lastly, here are all of his additional stats to see how all the numbers stack up, especially for things such as Crushing Blow and Open Wounds. With his great survivability and good damage, will he set the bar high to make it more difficult for all the other builds to live up to, or freeze up when his time to shine comes around? Any quick little bits of information will be shown on screen as needed to not distract from the run, and I'll go over more details of the run once it is completed. Let's go ahead and get started.
Impossible.
My brothers will not have died in vain.
Talk about a night and day difference in runs from the previous build, the Shaman Poison Barbarian. What could have made this run better was having a shorter path to Lilith, especially in not getting lost on my way to her, as well as to minimize the pre-buffing times. However, these are just minor nitpicks, but overall this was a great run. The total time for this run, from the start of entering the first portal to the fall of the final Uber in Tristram, had none of the pre-buffing and the resupplying section been sped up, was 8 minutes and 39 seconds, with a total of 3 minutes and 21 seconds spent actually fighting all of the Ubers, making this an overall very fast, but equally safe build to be able to take through the Ubers, even for as underutilized for the Ubers as he was. The resource management, I'd put around a 9 out of 10. It had less mana issues than the previous build's run, however, I was trying to stretch the mana width, at times, not using a mana potion too much to be able to hope when Whirlwind would be able to be used again, hope that it gets hits to be able to leech the mana back, and I did unfortunately get pretty greedy at times with that tactic, especially when fighting Diablo. Baal's mana burn would always be an issue, so fighting him had little impact on this rating. However, I could have done more with fighting Diablo and having 2 rows of mana potions and then having 2 rows of full rejuves. But overall, less was used to be able to help keep my health and mana filled to allow me to focus more on just dealing damage. The Merc died once, but with him surviving up until fighting Mephisto as the last of the Ubers before the torch dropped, he did his job very well and I can't complain with how long he survived, especially barely taking any damage from Lilith, who easily could have took him out in a matter of seconds. Moving on to the third elemental damage type build guide that I made, this run will be attempted by the SHAZAM's Lightning Barbarian build. Lightning has the ability to have the greatest range of damage of the 4 different elemental damages, from merely 1 to several thousands. So the expectations for what this one will do is anyone's guess compared to the prior 2 runs. Now that both of the builds that utilize the skill Whirlwind have been completed, the Frenzy Barbs will get their chance to be able to show how well they can do, starting with this lightning setup. This will allow for far better overall movement and increased attack speed. However, the disadvantage now lies in Frenzy wanting to swing on anything that's very close by, not just whatever is being clicked on. So the results, much like the wide range for the damage output, will be anyone's guess. However, because he will be using Drax for the life tap proc, this is looking promising to be one of the better runs in this series. Here's a quick glimpse of all his gear, though again, I won't be going over the finer details, but at least wanted you guys to see how he's currently stacked up for his run for this video. And this is how the mercenary is geared up as well. And lastly, here are all of his additional stats to see how all the numbers stack up, especially for things such as Crushing Blow and Open Wounds. With this build potentially having the highest range for damage output out of all the 4 different elemental damage types, will this run shock the series with its results, or only create sparks that can't even compare with static electricity from rubbing your socks on carpet? Any quick little bits of information will be shown on screen as needed to not distract from the run, and I'll go over more details of the run once it is completed. Let's go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon.
My brothers will not have died in vain.
This run had such good potential for damage, especially with his dual chance to cast Static Field on striking from his dual Crescent Moon weapons to be able to get the health down quite a bit right off the bat. However, because the damage range was so vast, this run really shows that all it takes is one hit either way regarding close to the max on the damage or close to the minimum, and this run can easily shift whether it's fast or slow. Baal's fight was the only one that lasted longer than a minute, as the other 5's longest time was Diablo at 54 seconds. I counted Diablo's fight into Baal's because Frenzy was still making hits on Baal while focusing on Diablo, leaving Baal's fight to have a much longer time from what it would take if he was to fight him solo from the start. The total runtime from the start of entering the first portal to the defeat of the final Uber and Tristram, had none of the pre-buffing and the resupplying sections been sped up, was 10 minutes and 16 seconds, with 5 minutes and 8 seconds of that time spent fighting all of the Ubers, leaving exactly half of the time of the full run being dedicated to fighting his way to getting his torch. The resource management was around a 9 out of 10, because once life tap proc for either myself or the mercenary to use, the full rejuice weren't heavily being relied on. Even with the potential damage output of whomever we were facing, I used more full rejuice with the mercenary for this run. So overall, I felt they went to a better use as he was a key factor in my damage going further until the eventual demise in Mephisto's hands. As just mentioned, the Merc did die once, just like with the previous run. However, it was again at Mephisto, of which I was happy that he stayed alive as long as he did. And with using Infinity, his Conviction Aura wasn't benefiting me anyway, as at that point, he was being used as a form of crowd control and or just being a diversion. With the other 3 elemental damage builds now having their Uber runs completed, being the poison damage, cold damage, and lightning damage builds, it's time for the last build guide that I made, being the Barbaric Fire build. Visually, this is one of my more favorite builds of the 4 in the series, but looks alone won't translate to good results if he cannot get through the Ubers. He will not be using Drax Gloves for the life tap proc like the last build had, because he will have a Redemption Aura on his weapons to be able to help get some health and mana back from anything that he kills aside from the Ubers, but is opting for Blood Gloves to be able to get some additional IAS and Crushing Blow. This way, there's better chances to start knocking down the health of all the Ubers much easier and faster to try to offset the lower damage output. Just like with the Lightning build, he'll be using the skill Frenzy to deal damage, aiding in increasing both his movement speed and attack speed. His damage potential has a much smaller range compared to the other builds. Though it being lower than the others, a true Barbarian will not back down when the odds are stacked against him. So his will, determination, and persistence are going to be some of his greatest assets to be able to get through his run today. Here's a quick glimpse of all his gear, though again, I won't be going over the finer details, but at least wanted you guys to see how he's currently stacked up for his run for this video. And this is how the mercenary is geared up as well. And lastly, here are all of his additional stats to see how all the numbers stack up, especially for things such as Crushing Blow and Open Wounds. Will he ignite and blaze through to Uber Tristram to be able to get his torch, or will he burn out in the heat of the moment to close out the series? Any quick little bits of information will be shown on screen as needed to not distract from the run, and I'll go over more details of the run once it is completed. Let's go ahead and get started.
My brothers will not have died in vain.
Wow, what a way to end the series. This was not expected at all. This build suffered the same issue as the previous run, and that was with having both Baal and Diablo team up to attack him at the same time, of which luckily, this build could handle without too much of an issue. But as far as the fight length, unfortunately added time that could have took him from fighting for 3rd place to solidifying his spot in 4th place with minutes to spare. However, he still otherwise held his own very well, with the only mercenary that didn't die to Mephisto. The total runtime from entering the first portal to the downfall of the last Uber and Tristram, had none of the pre-buffing and the resupplying section been sped up, was 13 minutes and 46 seconds, with 8 minutes and 24 seconds of that time spent fighting the Ubers to be able to get his much-earned torch. The resource management felt as though it was a fair 8 out of 10. He did have a good amount of life leech to help top off and slowly build his health back up. On top of that, he also had the redemption aura to be able to get some health and mana back when killing any of the minions that were surrounding the Ubers. However, he still needed to use quite a bit of full rejuice for himself to stay in the fights with Diablo and Baal. But in fairness, he didn't have to use all of them to keep himself and the mercenary alive from Mephisto, since the mercenary was off apparently trying to be a bouncer to the club that was the town square of Tristram before some of the minions pulled a Karen and wanted to speak to the manager, Mephisto, finally bringing the mercenary back towards me. The mercenary did die once. However, with his death only coming from Lilith, he survived to see Mephisto's demise, making this the only run to be able to do so, despite that the mercenary was elsewhere until the last few seconds. Gotta get your wins where you can. Now, for the results of the Battle of the Barbs, the winner of this clearly was...
Just kidding.
To break down the results, from the shortest runtime overall, from entering the first portal to the fall of the final Uber and Tristram, if I had kept the footage playing normally with no sped up parts, 4th place goes to the Shaman Poison Barbarian with 18 minutes and 32 seconds.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Followed by the Barbaric Fire Barbarian, coming in at 13 minutes and 46 seconds. Then, in 2nd place, was the SHAZAM Lightning Barbarian at 10 minutes and 16 seconds. And in 1st place, with the fastest time of 8 minutes and 39 seconds, the Winter Soldier Cold Barbarian. Now, if just taking into account the fight times for all 4 Barbarian runs, this is where things get a little interesting. Just the fight times, from the first strike either towards the Uber or the Barbarian, up until their death. In 4th place is the Barbaric Fire Barbarian with 8 minutes and 24 seconds. One of the biggest upsets of these runs.
Blow it out your ass.
Then, following behind him, surprisingly comes the Shaman Poison Barbarian, who clocked in at 6 minutes and 37 seconds. Not too bad for a build that utilizes damage dealt over time. Then, in 2nd place, which is no shocker, the SHAZAM Lightning Barbarian, with 5 minutes and 8 seconds. And taking the top spot for the second time of these results, in 1st place, is the Winter Soldier Cold Barbarian, with a chilling 3 minutes and 21 seconds.
Damn, I'm good. Hail to the king, baby.
Congratulations to all of them for their efforts in helping make this series a lot of fun and entertaining. All the torch rolls were as follows: a 15-14 Assassin for the Barbaric Fire Barbarian, a 16-12 Druid from the SHAZAM Lightning Barbarian, a 20-14 Assassin from the Winter Soldier Cold Barbarian, and a 13-14 Paladin for the Shaman Poison Barbarian. Unfortunately, all the torches rolled less than mid for resistances. However, stats-wise, the Winter Soldier Cold Barbarian had the best roll, regardless of class. But in the end, which of them did I have the most fun playing? If I was to redo taking these builds through the Ubers simply off of enjoyment, it's a tie for the Winter Soldier Cold Barbarian and the SHAZAM Lightning Barbarian. Both have their strengths and were fun for their own reasons. And with one being a Whirlwind setup and the other being a Frenzy setup, I personally favor Frenzy more as it's not so mana hungry. However, the Whirlwind gameplay was fun and something new for me when doing the Ubers, so I had extra enjoyment from trying something new. With all that said, this is going to wrap up this video, and thus being the conclusion of this series. Thank you all for making it this far into the video. I greatly appreciate your support and hope you enjoyed the video and the series as a whole. These type of videos are really fun to make, and if you have any ideas for a series to be able to make in the future, leave your thoughts and suggestions down in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing your guys' thoughts in both any ideas for future video projects, but also what you thought of this video and the series overall. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you like this kind of content and want to see more, hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to be notified whenever new videos come out.
Come on. Come on. Come on, then. There you are. There you are.
And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave it a like. Other than that, I'll see you all in the next video. Stay safe and take care.